Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out at the range to do a little bit of an experiment. We're going to take an old AR-15A2 or M16A2 with its iron sights in a standard configuration that would have been used during the Cold War, and we're going to compare it to the M27, which is the current infantry rifle being used by the United States Marine Corps. Now, of course, the M27 has all sorts of doodads and gadgets on it that are what I would call force multipliers that increase hit probability, and this old girl, I think, well, what I've said over the years is this is the last of the marksman's rifles used by the United States Marine Corps, where disciplined application of iron sights was the key focus of the marksmanship training during the Cold War. A lot of that would evolve. Of course, you know, we have red dot sights and magnified optics now that greatly improve the hit probability of the soldier on the ground, which I'm all in favor of. In no way am I trying through this experiment today, seeing which one of these rifles I can shoot more quickly and accurately at the course of fire we have set up. In no way am I trying to say that all you really need is iron sights. This stuff is useless. That's not what I'm saying. These force multipliers definitely have an application. All I'm trying to find out in today's video is, can I take the rifle that I've been shooting since I was in high school, a rifle that I was trained to use in this configuration with this particular sling setup. I've been shooting it the same way for 30 plus years, and so it's set up in a way that I'm familiar with. I am not that familiar with the M27. It's a collector's piece for me. I've not spent a whole lot of time shooting it, but what I do know is the blue force sling that the current Marines use is not something I've ever gotten comfortable with. I can't use it in the same way that I do my old school sling, which would be very similar to the sling that would have been used on the M14 and even the M1 Garand. So I am dating myself a bit. So that's what we're going to do. Shoot at 100 yards, 150 and 205 rounds each. We're going to see about how quickly I can do it with each rifle. We will be using some Federal 55 grain ball. I do want to thank our friends over at Federal for supplying the ammunition free of charge to the channel. It helps us out tremendously. I've been shooting this stuff since I was a kid, even with my first AR-15 back in the 1980s. And I love Federal as a company, and they've always done a really good job with their ammunition. So with all that out of the way, let's do a little shooting and see how much fun we can have. A lot of folks ask me, how can I get involved in the firearms business in that particular community? And one of the best ways to do that is to become a gunsmith. Every gunsmith I know is just overbooked with work. It's a very good living. And so if you would like to become a gunsmith, you need to go to a gunsmithing school or become an apprentice for an existing gunsmith. But Modern Gun School is an accredited college that also works with veterans in the GI Bill, where you can go and get a degree from accredited college in gunsmithing and then go out and start your own gunsmithing business, which I think is a really great option. Again, throughout my entire life, gunsmiths have always been able to earn a really good living, assuming they have a really strong work ethic. So please check out Modern Gun School. I do have a link in the video description below. So the Marines have had an interesting relationship with the other branches. It seems during the Cold War era especially, the Marines would oftentimes get hand-me-downs from the Army generally. So things like during the Cold War, you would see the Marines, even in the late 80s, still using the M60 tank. And then when the Army decided to go to the M1A1 Abrams, the M1s wound up in Marine Corps inventory, the used ones. You see Marines during the Cold War running around in old Alice gear and just all sorts of stuff. So they got a lot of hand-me-downs. But towards the middle to the late 80s, the Marines, with their M16A1s, decided, well, we want a rifle that's our own. And that's where we get the M16A2 that you see here. And they wanted a number of different changes to make it more of a marksman's rifle. And so I would argue that they turned the M16A1 into a target rifle. But that's open for debate. But I do think that this is one of the last marksman's rifles the U.S. military has adopted, where you were forced to use iron sights and learn the discipline of iron sights. We've since moved on to force multipliers like optics. But some of the things that the Marines changed, so you went from the M16A1 that would be right around 6.5 pounds to this rifle, which would be just right around 7.5 pounds. Give me some rounding movement there and those weight numbers. But this rifle wound up being a bit heavier, and why is that? Well, they went to a slightly heavier profile on the barrel. They went from the triangular handguards that had a left and right side to round handguards that don't care if they're on the top or the bottom. So if you break one, you don't need to find a top cover. You just replace it with one of the handguards. And the triangular handguards, the teeth on them were known to be knocked out and broken rather easily, so these handguards tend to be a little bit more durable. One of the biggest changes the Marines wanted was the addition of the combat adjustable sights, and that's where we get these target sights. So we have our traditional windage and elevation here on the A1. It would be done with the bullet tip. Wasn't intended to be done quickly in the field. You would just zero your rifle and use hold. The Marines wanted to be able to dial in elevation and dial in windage at will without having to use tools. So That's where we got the A2 rear sights. We also saw them reinforce the receivers back here a bit, which was a weak point in the M16 versions that predate the A2. We saw the teardrop forward assist go to a circular forward assist. They added a little bit of length to the buttstock, making the rifle a little bit longer, more comfortable for people like myself. They're a bit taller. Changed the pistol grip to this little notched, finger grooved pistol grip, and a few other changes here and there. And so that became the A2, and of course the Army would adopt the A2 for a while. Then we went to the A4, the M4, and then the M27. So that's kind of my passion about the A2. It's my generation's rifle, and so I just want to see how it's going to fare out here on this course. Now I'm shooting off the table off of a bag. We were originally going to shoot off the ground, but I have not trimmed the range much this year, and we have new saplings that have grown up to obscure just about all of our long-range targets from anything other than an elevated position. So I'm just going to shoot off of a bag. I had originally planned to use my sling, as I've always done, to stabilize the rifle, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to rest both rifles on a hasty rest. This, say, is taking the place of a backpack. This was the mat we were going to use on the ground, and I'm just going to do the course of fire from here. 100, 150, and 200, 5 rounds on each target with the A2, and then we'll transition over to the M27. All right, so that was 5 rounds on each target. I think I counted correctly, and we hit 5, 5, and 5. So now let's give it a try. Same course of fire, using the M27 with the magnified optic, and see if it speeds me up any. I don't know. Now this isn't, again, me proving that this is a superior system to that. That's not what I'm doing here. I'm just trying to find out how much of an improvement under ideal conditions all these force multipliers add to the M27. I may have already said this, guys, but I'm far more rehearsed with the A2 than I am with the M27. This is just a collectible clone build for me. I don't shoot it much, but just getting on the weapon, having just fired my course of fire with my A2 and using the RCO, yeah. I mean, truly, this is an improvement. I will give it that. I love my iron sights. Let's see how this goes. Now, I don't think I went slow with the A2, but what I will say is this setup is superior in terms of hit probability, field of view downrange, being able to cleanly identify a target, and of course, just because of the magnification and the nice clean sharp reticle, it's just easier to make the shots. My iron sights are black, the targets downrange are painted black, and if you're not used to using iron sights, and even if you are, that front sight can easily disappear, which it was especially at 200 yards for me, because I've shot the rifle so much, I was still able to score those hits, but it was far more challenging than the RCO. That was a lot of fun. Maybe I should do in another video, a more expanded type of test where we do a little bit of movement, standing, kneeling, prone, and see what the differences are. But I can tell you just from this limited test, the M27 is a better rifle. And I hate saying that. So in the end, it's interesting to see the M27 and how it compared to the good old M16A2. The IAR M27 is kind of a dual purpose rifle. So the Marines originally wanted to replace the saw with it, and now they're using it both as an infantry rifle and a squad automatic weapon, all rolled into one, which is a lightweight rifle. Now, let's talk about the weight. Yes, this as configured is a bit of a pig. The A2s back in the day, they didn't have a bunch of stuff you would put on them. This is just what they were issued like, and this is how they would have been used in service. And again, this is right around 7.5 pounds. Now, what's interesting is that the M27, without a sling, without its optic, without its vert grip, without its PEC, without its suppressor, weighs about 7.9 pounds. So let's say it's a half a pound heavier than the A2. Where the weight's coming from is the addition of the RCO, the vert grip, the PEC, the can, and any other accessories, slings, and things like that that you would add to the firearm, which can get up to 13 plus pounds, which puts you back in kind of the M14 territory of weight. So are the force multipliers worth the squeeze? I would say so. You know, it definitely is one of those things that, as much as confident and as comfortable as I am with iron sights, because I've been shooting them my entire life, this truly makes a rifle easier to shoot. I think it would make it easier to train a troop on how to use it. I think it's easier under stressful situations to be able to get solid hits with a weapon configured in this way. Certainly in adverse conditions and low light conditions, you have the advantage with the weapon. So I'm going to go ahead and say the weight trade-off, at least in my opinion, it makes sense. And it seems like the Marines are moving towards a lighter force. They're getting rid of their heavy armor like the M1 tank. They're getting rid of it. They're getting rid of the saw in favor of this. They're going back to their original mission of being light, quick infantry that hits the beaches and quickly moves inland, destroying everything in their path. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing with the evolution of these weapon systems. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I had a lot of fun filming this. It was a lot of fun shooting this. I will say my eyes, I still have great vision at distance, but my up close vision is fading me quickly. And it used to be I would still have a nice sharp front sight post on a rifle like the A2. Not so sharp anymore. It's a bit fuzzy, and that sucks. But anyway, yeah, if you enjoy content like this, please consider becoming part of our Patreon family. We do have a link in the video description below. Also, right here on YouTube, you got the subscribe button underneath the video player you're watching right now. You can mash that button and help support us right here on YouTube in the age of demonetization. Thank you for 17 years of support. Swing by, check out Copper Custom, and we'll talk to you guys soon.